to Battle of Champions, coming to you live from Dubai. With me, as always, Mr. Sunil Gavaskar. We're going to be talking about India's campaign here in the Champions Trophy. They are scheduled to play the last game, and that is going to be versus New Zealand. Today is match day -1. We'll get to hear from both camps as we progress in our show. Also, a little bit of controversy brewing around the scheduling of the tournament and how two teams really have to travel to be ready to face India. We'll discuss all of that. But before that, Saivai, it's the eve of the game versus New Zealand. Inconsequential game because both teams have qualified for the semi-final. But what do you think is at stake here for both India and New Zealand?
I actually don't think it's an inconsequential game. In terms of, points, maybe. But how do you say it's inconsequential? Because whoever gets to win the game becomes number 1. And they get to play the number 2 of the other group. So I don't think it's inconsequential. Also, as far as the rhythm is concerned, you want to keep the winning rhythm going, the winning momentum going, the winning feeling going. Because anytime you lose, suddenly, just like any batter, you play and miss, you tend to have that little shred of doubt in your mind before the next ball comes along. So you don't want anything like that to happen. So India has to keep on winning to be able to get that feeling. Look, and also sending a message to the opposition. Right. That look, we are there. I mean, try and beat us to win the championship.
Okay, it's going to be an exciting contest, considered by many probably the two best teams of the tournament so far. In terms of India's combination, there are a few players that really haven't been tested so far. Because you get into the business end from the semi-final onwards, there's an Arshdeep Singh that probably you want to give him some game time. There is also a Rishabh Pant. Or do you think, no, let's just continue with the winning combination? What should the Indian team be doing?
I think winning combination, unless there's a niggle somewhere, then you give that, and if he's going to be a player for the semi-finals, then definitely, yes, give that guy a little bit of a break. Give him a couple more days to recover. But otherwise, try and play the same combination as much as possible. Is what you would like to think. But I don't know what they're going to do. They might want to bring in Arshdeep just because they want him to get a few overs under his belt. That also, there's nothing wrong with that. Right. Look, this team is such a good team that people sitting outside are good enough to play in the team, but they can't get in because of various other factors like the opposition's, batting strength, bowling strength, opposition, left-handers, right-handers. So that is the reason why a little bit, you might turn around and say, why not Arshdeep, why not Rishabh Pant? Those are the things, why not Varun Chakravarti? But this is a very, very good Indian team. So, we're very, very hopeful that they will be going all the way.
Okay, the playing 11 you reckon should be the same winning combination that they've had so far, undefeated in the tournament. Maybe continue with that. Maybe the Indian team also looks at that, considering it's a short tournament. So, anyway, Indian team's got like a 1-week gap. So probably you'd want your players to be in rhythm. But in terms of any boxes that they need to tick, what are the areas that they can look at? Because this is like, as I said, you said it's not an inconsequential game, but this is a game where you could slightly take your foot off the pedal. So anything that they want to tick here?
I think between the 15th and the 35th to 40th over, they have not been able to make the inroads in the opposition batting as much as you would like, because they get the early wickets. Then there's just a little bit of a situation where there's a bit of resistance from the opposition. I think that if they can get that, where they don't allow a partnership to build up. Sometimes when a partnership builds up and then the opposition still has maybe 5 wickets in hand, when it comes to the last 10 overs, they can go hammer and tongs and score at maybe 10-12 runs in the last 10 overs and get to 120 more than what they are at the end of the 39th over.
Just looking at New Zealand as an opposition, Dubai, a lot of teams, especially from the Senna countries, have found it very tough to play in these spin-friendly conditions. But if you reckon there could be one team that could give India a run for its money, in these conditions, it would be New Zealand, considering the batters play very well against spin and they have a good spin lineup as well.
Yes, I would think that this is a team that can give India a real run for the simple reason that their batting has got that little X factor. You have somebody like a Glenn Phillips coming down the order. They've got solidity at the top. What you would say classic cricket shots, like what Kohli does. Classic cricket where those guys can get the scoreboard ticking quite nicely. When it comes to playing all the different shots which are so much a part of white ball cricket today, Glenn Phillips is the guy. So they have got that. They've got Bracewell who can do that. So those, and of course, both these guys, they're mainly batters, but they can come in and bowl 10 overs of spin as well.
Okay, what's happening in the other group? And there's an interesting development here in Dubai, and we thought we'll report that to you, is that both the teams now that are most likely going to be playing the semi-final, South Africa have confirmed their position after, doing really well in their last group game at the moment. So they are going to qualify and Australia qualify. But what's going to happen is both Australia and South Africa are going to be traveling to Dubai. That's because of the schedule at the moment. So you're going to have a situation where Australia are going to be coming to Dubai today, which is right after their final game they've played, and then South Africa play their game today, and then they travel to Dubai tomorrow, while India will be playing their game versus New Zealand. Now, why do they have to do that? Because there's a very short turnaround time after India's final game. So one thing is confirmed, that India are playing their semi-final here in Dubai on the 4th. So there's just a one-day turnaround. And now which team is going to be playing? What the ICC has said is that they want to give both teams enough practice time here in Dubai to get used to the conditions. That's why both teams arrive here, of course, on different dates. Now the interesting bit here is, assuming South Africa arrive here, and they are then not playing the semi-final here in Dubai, and Australia are playing, then South Africa, after arriving here on that day, will be travelling within a few hours back to Pakistan, then to be playing the next semi-final. So that's what has happened right now because of the scheduling. Saima, I'm just going to be looking at it from the two teams' point of view, especially a team that does not play. They travel here and then travel back. That's not an ideal situation for a team ahead of the semi-final.
It is not, but look, you can always, after this evening's game, where you know what happens, whether who's going to be number 1 or 2, who's going to be playing. I mean, surely South Africa can cancel their tickets. Australia already out here. South Africa can obviously decide to stay back. I mean, whatever expenses you're talking about, with the kind of money, if it's ICC expense, the kind of money ICC is making, I don't think that cancellation should be any issue at all.
But the issue would then arise, Saima, where India finish. So let's say South Africa, as you know, South Africa.
Doesn't matter where India finish.
India are playing here. So let's say, assuming if India were to top the group, then they play the second position team, and we don't know who's first and second in Australia, South Africa. Now, keeping that in mind, what do you make of a team that comes here and then has to go back?
Well, that's the way the thing is. It's not easy for India as well, because India, whether they finish number 1 or number 2, still play the semi-final on Tuesday.
Yes.
So for India, it's also tough, just a day's gap before they come into the semis. So yes, it is tough, but that's what international sport is all about. If everything was going to be hunky-dory and right up what you want, then there would be no competition. The whole thing is about trying to conquer conditions, competition, situations, and I think you want to win the championship, then you've got to be prepared to accept all these things.
I was trying to think of a solution, because that's what we do, right? We're always trying to firefight as journalists. So I was trying to think of a solution. If they had the India semi-final as the second semi-final, you would have had that extra day. Like India play the first semi-final. Had that been the second semi-final and maybe the first semi-final in Pakistan, maybe that could have been a solution. You could have avoided that.
Definitely, yes. Even if you had, for example, made this semi-final, the first semi-final instead of the 4th, instead of Tuesday, on the Wednesday.
The second semi-final.
And even the other one on Thursday.
Yeah.
You could have done that on Thursday. You still get Friday, Saturday, 2 days off before the game, before the final on Sunday.
Or swap the game today. Maybe India played their game today on a Saturday.
Yeah.
And the other game that South Africa are playing, play their final game on Sunday.
That could have been done, because then, I don't know when New Zealand got into, when was New Zealand's previous game. But if they had a 2-day gap, then it could have been done where India played on Saturday. But how can India play on a Saturday? India is box office. Yeah. So the broadcast, people who are spending a lot of money, they obviously have to try and recover something. So for them, it has to be Sunday.
Okay. We know the commercials and how it is then decided that India play on the big day, which is Sunday, of course, and you have to take a look at that. But what that has resulted in two teams travelling here. One of them is going to be going back and then playing their semi-final in Pakistan. Okay, so now from India's point of view, which is the one team that they would rather play in the semi-final than the other? I know they're looking very good, but now you have a choice. If you had to pick one team that India would be more comfortable against in the semi-final, which one would that be? Australia or South Africa?
I think both teams are formidable teams, make no mistake. So there's no such a team that India would say, look, because now they know. Now you come to the knockouts. At the league stage, you always feel there's another match to come. So, there's just that, feeling that there is something in reserve. But here it's now make or break. So I don't think, they would prefer to have any team. Maybe Australia, because they played Australia, they know Australia a little bit better than South Africa. South Africa, the last time they played was in the T20 World Cup final. So maybe they might prefer Australia, because Australia are without their main bowlers. There's no Stark, no Cummins, no Hazelwood, so they're without their main bowlers. So maybe they would want to play them.
We're talking about that group, and before we look at other news from the Champions Trophy, Australia have looked good despite a lot of players missing out. South Africa has been in good form, played the final of the T20 World Cup, are doing good here. Afghanistan has given a team or two a scare in this tournament, as they always do. What do you make of England's performance in the tournament?
Yeah, I know today also they were all out for 178, but that's got nothing to do with them. It's only because India is in Dubai. That is the reason they got all out for 178. So, that is that. So, that is what is happening. Because India is there, England has not done, India is in Dubai, is the only reason I think, or at least they feel, that England have not done so well. So I apart from that, I don't know any reason why they haven't done well.
Yeah, I think what Saiba is trying to get at, you need to clear your mind, focus on your strengths, your weaknesses, and if you look at that, then probably the team does well. We saw hints of that from the England team when they were in India, when they got blanked out right before the ODI series heading to the Champions Trophy. They said that, listen, we're not taking this very seriously. We're not here to win. We're just it's like a dress rehearsal, getting ready for Champions Trophy. I'm afraid that preparation wasn't good, because they are, of course, knocked out in round one. Saiba, scenes from yesterday from Lahore, that game, it's a crucial game. Sponges being used, wipers being used for a tournament of this stature. Many teams will feel aggrieved that probably their chances were hurt of not qualifying for a semi-final with these facilities there.
I think super stoppers and more importantly, the entire ground should be covered, because that is so important. Because yes, it takes a little longer maybe to get the covers off, but at least you have a very good chance of the game starting as soon as the covers are taken off, because the ground will be relatively drier. And this is something that should have been done in 2019 in England as well. There were a couple of South Africa games where it rained and then the game wasn't resumed, so South Africa shared points, if I recall correctly. So even England, see, Lahore, I'm not sure whether this is the rainy season. I'm not sure.
It's not actually, but it's unseasonal rain.
Yes,
yeah.
But in England, it can rain anytime. And therefore, England grounds must have it all covered. So England should be the last, country to be pointing a finger at what happened in Lahore. Because in England also, in 2019, the matches have got washed out. 1999 matches got abandoned because of the fact that the ground was wet. The pitch was covered, the square was covered, maybe the run-ups were covered, but you want to cover the entire ground so that the game can resume very quickly. Yes, for a tournament of this nature, certainly yes, that was essential.
How does that impact Pakistan's chances of holding more big tournaments in the future? Because this was going to be a real litmus test for them. Got a big tournament after a long gap. What do you think are going to be their prospects going forward?
Well, what happens is, in a situation like this, a country can learn. So the country now knows that, look, yes, it is not the rainy season, but we must be prepared, and we must be prepared with covers for every occasion. So I don't think it should impact Pakistan's chances as such, because if that happens, well, what about England? You should have. Nobody talks about England.
Yeah.
It's always a finger which is pointed at the subcontinent. Any shortcoming that is seen, it's always in the subcontinent, as if nothing happens in the old powers. The old powers also. This is what I'm saying. So if it is allowed to have, you are allowed to have a tournament in England, because despite the fact that the total ground was not covered in 2019 and a couple of matches which should have resumed didn't resume.
Yeah.
I don't see any reason for pointing a finger at Pakistan.
Since we're looking at the group, and also it's concluding the group stage right now, and we spoke about various other teams like Australia, England, so on and so forth, and we were on the subject of Pakistan. We were in Pakistan and we spoke to a lot of former players in terms of what's really gone wrong with cricket and Pakistani cricket, and there were many suggestions what needs to be fixed. From the outside, what do you make of the status that Pakistan cricket finds itself in? You think the grounds and all can be fixed, but what about the cricket?
Well, I to be honest, I don't really, have much idea what happens in Pakistan. But what I've seen every time Pakistan doesn't do well is the barrage of criticism that comes from those who should be supporting. I can understand the common fan who gets disappointed, but those who have played the game before And those who know that, winning is not always possible, there will be losses. You will lose it even to some ordinary teams. Not every time a batter goes, he scores 100. Not every time a bowler gets 5. So if that's support, I think that support is essential for the current Pakistan team. Sometimes when snippets are sent with some of the former Pakistani cricketers having a go at the current team, you look at them and you just ask, hello, did you win every match that you played in for Pakistan? You did. So even this team is struggling a little bit. So lift them up instead of criticizing. By all means, if there is some pretty ordinary cricket, and if it's your job to talk about it, talk about it. But after that, come back and support the team. Say, supposing somebody should have done something and he didn't do it on the field because of the temperament wasn't there. You do certainly speak, and maybe therefore there's a learning for the person concerned. But I think that the former players must lift the Pakistani team up. Must always be a little more positive about and get their spirits up.
Maybe that's a point that needs introspection from the Pakistan cricketing ecosystem. Sunny, before I let you go, India, New Zealand, one or two players you think that India really needs to watch out for in the New Zealand camp?
Glenn Phillips is one, definitely. Fielding, batting, bowling, I think he's been outstanding. He's the one to watch out for. And I think the other one is Rachin, Ravindra, because the left-hander, he's scored 100 in the previous game. The first match he missed because of that injury that he had, but he's come back and he's got 100. So he's the guy to watch out for.
Okay, on that note, we'll let Mr. Gavaskar go. Plenty more coming with him on match day. That is going to be India versus New Zealand on a Sunday. So get your popcorns out and your beverages, enjoy the game on TV. But for all the analysis, you need to come. You need to come on India Today because Mr. Gavaskar is going to be coming with his pre-match as well as his post-match analysis. If you're craving for some more sports news, you can also head over to our digital platform, Sports Today. Just go on YouTube, search for it, and you'll find that.